So the concept of a pre-bootstrap loading screen is actually something that I've looked at a number of times in an Angular context. And pre-bootstrap loading screen, what I mean by that is there's a time between when you try to load the window and when the Angular application is actually available for interaction and or data has been fetched that makes the Angular suitable for interaction. And in that period of time, sometimes it's nice to be able to show a more interesting design as opposed to just maybe an empty page or a page that says, loading in the top left. And here you can see if I refresh, I have this nice app is loading and then it fades out, revealing the Angular application below it. I'll do it one more time. It fades out. And in the past, I've implemented this concept using things like a globally available promise object and custom DOM events that get emitted on the document object. And just recently, I saw some people at work using the postMessage method on the window, and it occurred to me that window.postMessage actually might make a really simple yet elegant way to have the Angular application emit data that's consumable from an external context. So let's take a quick look at what this might look like. So first, what I did is I went in and I created a messaging abstraction, which essentially just wraps around this window.postMessage. Now, postMessage can deliver not any kind, but a lot of different type of data to a target window. In this case, I'm just going to be emitting a string, but it could be anything that's serializable, I believe. And the postMessage API allows an origin to be defined, and in this case, I'm just locking the origin down to the current window because I know I'm doing intra-window communication. That is, I'm sending from one window back to its self. So technically, it doesn't really matter so much, but it's a best practice with the postMessage to explicitly provide an origin when possible. So once I have this abstraction around the post message, I then create another abstraction called the app ready event. And the app ready event is the model essentially, or the service that the application is going to use to announce the fact that it is now ready for interaction. So it provides a single method trigger, and you can see I have some logic here that only allows it to be triggered once. And when you trigger the app ready event, essentially all I'm doing is turning around, calling that messaging abstraction, and I'm sending app ready as a string. Now in my app component, I can then consume this app ready event, and you see here down inside my ng on it, I'm going to simulate some additional data load. So in this demo, I'm not just signifying the app ready as all of the things have been wired together. It's all of the things have been wired together, and I've fetched some additional data from the server that would make this application usable. So that's what the set timeout is supposed to simulate. And inside here, you can see I'm getting that app ready event, and I'm just triggering. I'm triggering the app ready event, which remember turns around and calls the post message API, sending the string app ready. Now this is where we cross the Angular application boundary. At this point, I'm going to be consuming that data outside of the Angular context, which will be in my main HTML page. Now my main HTML page, if we scroll down here to the bottom, you can see here's where my Angular app is actually being defined in the DOM. And what I want to do is listen for that app ready event that's coming out of this application. Now the messaging abstraction here with window post message, this is going to create a message event on the window object. So inside of my index.htm, inside that parent context, I need to listen for the message event on window. So if we jump back here and we scroll up, what we can see is that here I'm adding an event listener to window for message. And then inside my handler, I'm checking to see if the data associated with that message event is that string app ready. Now again, this doesn't always have to be a string. This could be kind of any serializable object. In this case, I happen to be sending the string app ready, so my data in this case will be app ready. So when the external context hears this app ready event, it removes the listener because I don't need to remove the splash page more than once. And then I go ahead and I just tell I call this remove splash screen method, which changes the class, which invokes a CSS transition, which I know is going to be half a second, and then after half a second, I simply grab all of the splashy type elements and I rip them out of the page, which is why we can see actually if I jump over here to the elements, let's see if I can refresh here. You can see there's a couple things and then they disappear. I'll do that again. Couple of things at the top and then they disappear, right? Couple things at the top and then they disappear. So after the splash screen has faded out of view, I then rip them out of the DOM. So this is not a new piece of functionality, right? We've looked at pre-Bootstrap loading screens in the past several times, in fact. But this, I think, is just a very simple and elegant implementation of that type of feature. On the sending side, right, it's a single line of code. There's no cross-browser polyfills or anything like that to jump through. PostMessage has some pretty strong support, I think IE 10 and up, maybe IE 9, I don't remember offhand. It's on the Mozilla Developer Network page. And then on the consuming side, I'm still using the add event listener the way I would have with, say, a custom DOM event. But I don't know, just to me this felt very clean, very simple, and in a way it also felt more appropriate, right? Because the origin, the need for the window post message was to enable cross-origin messaging between windows. So if you think about what is cross-origin messaging, it's essentially messaging outside of a current application context, which in an Angular application is really what we're doing, right? We're sending a message from an Angular context in such a way that we want to consume it outside of that Angular context. So while we're not doing inter-window communication, it's just intra-window communication, I think it sticks with the intent of the post message API, which is to enable messaging across boundaries. And in this case, the boundary is the Angular application, and the consumer of that event is the parent window context that renders the Angular application. So anyway, like I said, I just think this is actually pretty interesting, and if nothing else, merits some more investigation into the post-message workflows, because I think there's some interesting potential there.